What if I told you that the anxiety gnawing at your chest right now, that fear that things won't work out, is not a warning system protecting you, but a defense mechanism hiding the truth? You've been taught that worry prepares you, that doubt keeps you safe. But here's what your unconscious mind already knows. You are spending your entire life rehearsing disasters that will never come, while the universe has been conspiring in your favor all along. The question isn't whether things will work out. They already are. The question is, when will you finally stop fighting against your own becoming? Before we dive deeper into this, I want to ask something simple. If you're finding value in what we're exploring here, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. And I'm genuinely curious. Leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. I love knowing that we're having this conversation across time zones, across continents, across all the artificial boundaries that separate us. Now, let's continue. You are exhausted from trying to control outcomes. You lie awake replaying conversations, analyzing decisions, wondering if you're on the right path. You've been told to trust the process, but no one has explained what that actually means when your bank account is empty, your relationship is crumbling, or your dreams feel further away than ever. You oscillate between forcing things to happen and feeling paralyzed by uncertainty. And underneath it all is a whisper you're terrified to acknowledge. What if I'm not enough? What if life doesn't work out for people like me? I see you there, scrolling through social media at 2 a.m, watching everyone else's highlight reel while you're stuck in what feels like an endless blooper reel of your own life. I see you calculating and recalculating, trying to figure out the exact right move, the perfect strategy, the foolproof plan that will finally make everything fall into place. I see you exhausted from the weight of trying to hold everything together, terrified that if you relax for even a moment, it will all come crashing down. And here's what breaks my heart. You think this vigilance is keeping you safe. You think this constant monitoring, this endless strategizing, this obsessive replaying of every conversation and decision is somehow preventing disaster. But it's not. It's creating the very suffering you're trying to avoid. It's like trying to fall asleep by thinking really hard about falling asleep. The effort itself is the obstacle. Right now, you are at war with reality. You believe that constant vigilance will prevent disaster, that anxiety is a form of preparation, that you must think your way to safety. This is the exhausted state. The tightness in your chest, the inability to rest, the sense that you're always one mistake away from collapse. The feeling that you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up and you can never quite catch your breath. The sense that everyone else got a manual for life and yours got lost in the mail. But imagine this instead. You wake up and trust the day, not blindly, not naively, but with a deep cellular knowing that even the detours are taking you somewhere essential. You make decisions without agonizing for weeks. You experience setbacks without collapsing into despair. You live as if you are being guided because you finally understand that you are. You move through your day with a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. You rest without guilt. You take action without desperation. You trust the timing of things without needing to control every variable. Imagine making a choice and then actually being at peace with it instead of second-guessing yourself for the next 3 weeks. Imagine experiencing a disappointment and instead of spiraling into despair, being curious about what it might be redirecting you toward. Imagine looking at your life not as a series of problems to be solved, but as a story that's unfolding with an intelligence you're just beginning to recognize. Let me be clear about what acting as if everything works out is not. It's not toxic positivity that ignores real pain. I've spent my entire career studying pain, sitting with it, learning its language. I would never ask you to bypass it or pretend it doesn't exist. It's not magical thinking that denies practical action. You still pay your bills. You still show up. You still do the work. It's not spiritual bypassing that avoids responsibility. In fact, it requires more responsibility, not less, because you're taking responsibility for your internal state, regardless of external circumstances. It's not pretending that suffering doesn't exist. Suffering is real, and it's often the very mechanism through which transformation occurs. This is about understanding the psyche's fundamental drive toward wholeness. Your unconscious is not trying to punish you, it is trying to complete you. And once you grasp this, your entire relationship with struggle transforms. You stop seeing obstacles as evidence that you're on the wrong path and start seeing them as initiations into the next level of your becoming. You stop interpreting difficulty as a sign that life is against you and start recognizing it as life sculpting you into who you're meant to be. For decades, I have explored the hidden territories of the human mind. I have sat with patients who were convinced they were cursed, broken beyond repair, doomed to repeat their traumas forever. I've listened to thousands of hours of human suffering, and I've discovered patterns that most people never see because they're too close to their own experience. And what I discovered changed everything. The psyche has an inherent intelligence. It creates symptoms not to torture you, but to get your attention. It orchestrates crises not to destroy you, but to initiate you into a larger version of yourself. Your unconscious mind is like a master artist working on a sculpture. Sometimes it must chip away at the stone. Sometimes it must apply pressure. Sometimes it must remove what doesn't belong so that what does belong can be revealed. From your perspective, all you feel is the chisel. But from a larger perspective, you're being carved into your truest form. This teaching isn't about adopting a new belief system. It's about recognizing what is already happening beneath the surface of your consciousness. And when you see it, you can never unsee it. It's like those optical illusions where once someone points out the hidden image, you can't not see it anymore. Once you recognize the pattern of how your psyche is working for you, not against you, everything shifts. I know what it's like to feel that life is against you. I have experienced my own dark nights, my own periods of doubt and despair. I am not speaking to you from some untouchable mountaintop of enlightenment. I'm a man who has wrestled with his own demons, who has questioned everything, who has sat in the darkness wondering if there was any light at all. I am speaking to you as someone who has walked through the valley and discovered that even there, especially there, something profound was being prepared. There were times in my own life when I felt completely lost, when my theories were rejected, when my colleagues dismissed my work as absurd, when I wondered if I was wasting my life pursuing ideas that no one would ever accept. I know what it's like to feel like you're the only one who sees what you see and to doubt yourself because of it. I know what it's like to have people you respect tell you that you're wrong, that you're misguided, that you should give up and do something more conventional. But something in me knew, not with certainty, not with confidence, but with a quiet persistence that wouldn't let me stop. And looking back now, I can see that every rejection was redirecting me. Every closed door was protecting me from a path that would have diminished my work. Every moment of doubt was asking me to go deeper, to find a conviction that didn't depend on external validation. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to learn what only this moment can teach you. And I know that's hard to hear when you're in pain. I know it sounds like a platitude when you're struggling to make rent or watching a relationship fall apart or feeling like you've wasted years of your life. But it's not a platitude. It's a recognition of how growth actually works. You can't learn patience without situations that require you to wait. You can't learn resilience without challenges that test you. You can't discover your own strength without circumstances that demand you find it. Now let me tell you a story that changed how I understood the human capacity for self-sabotage and self-healing. I want to tell you about a man who came to me in Vienna, impeccably dressed, outwardly successful, yet haunted by a terror he couldn't name. He arrived at my office on a Tuesday afternoon in early spring. I remember because the windows were open and you could hear the street musicians playing below, and he sat in the chair across from me so rigidly that I thought he might shatter. He had worked his entire life toward a particular goal, to become a professor at the university. This wasn't just ambition. This was his entire identity. Everything he had done since he was a young man was in service of this goal. Every decision, every sacrifice, every late night of study was building toward this moment. And now, on the verge of achieving it, he was falling apart. Panic attacks that came out of nowhere. Insomnia so severe he hadn't slept more than 2 hours a night in weeks. A creeping dread that intensified the closer he got to his dream, as if success itself was a predator stalking him. "Dr. Freud," he said, and his voice was shaking, "I fear I am losing my mind. Everything I've wanted is within reach, and I cannot bear it. I've worked for 30 years toward this position. 30 years. I've sacrificed relationships, health, any semblance of a normal life. And now that it's finally happening, I'm falling apart. What is wrong with me?" Most would diagnose anxiety about success, fear of visibility, imposter syndrome, all those modern labels we put on suffering to make it feel manageable. But I saw something deeper. I saw a man at war with his own completion. That same week, he brought me a dream. And dreams, as I've spent my life trying to help people understand, are not random. They are not meaningless. They are the language of the unconscious, trying desperately to communicate what the conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. In the dream, he was climbing a mountain, the summit clearly visible, achingly close. Close enough that he could see the peak, could imagine himself standing there. But with each step forward, the path crumbled beneath his feet, stone and earth giving way. He would scramble, rebuild the path with his bare hands, climb again, and again the path would crumble. The summit never got closer. In fact, with each attempt, it seemed to recede. He would wake from this dream drenched in sweat, heart racing, convinced the dream was a prophecy of failure, a confirmation of his deepest fear that he would never arrive, that he would spend his whole life climbing and never reach the top. But dreams don't predict the future. They reveal the present your conscious mind refuses to see. I asked him, what if the dream isn't showing you failure? What if it's showing you the exhausting way you've been approaching your entire life? What if the dream is saying that the path you're on, the way you've been climbing, is the problem, not the solution? He stared at me, unable to answer. Because to consider that possibility would mean everything he'd built his life around was based on a false premise. Through our work together, over many weeks of careful excavation, we uncovered the root. When he was 7 years old, his father, a stern, rigid man who believed that love was something to be earned through achievement, told him something that would shape the next 30 years of his life. Success is for those who deserve it. You must earn every breath, not as a motivational speech, but as a judgment, as a declaration that his worth was conditional, that his existence itself was something he had to continually prove. From that moment, his unconscious made a devastating equation. Love equals suffering. Achievement equals unworthiness. If I finally arrive, if things finally work out, then I'll have nothing left to prove. And if I have nothing to prove, who am I? Do you see the trap? He had built his entire identity around being the one who must struggle, who must prove himself, who must earn his place. And the prospect of actually arriving, of actually achieving the thing he'd worked for, threatened to destroy the only sense of self he'd ever known. His anxiety wasn't about success. It was about annihilation of the identity he had built around struggle. You see, He had become so identified with being the one who must work harder, suffer longer, prove himself endlessly, that the prospect of ease felt like death. Not physical death, but ego death. The death of the story he'd been telling himself since childhood. The story that said you are only worthy if you're struggling. You only matter if you're in pain. You only deserve love if you're suffering for it. And this is far more common than you might think. How many people do you know who can't accept a compliment, who deflect praise, who minimize their accomplishments, who seem almost addicted to struggle? It's not because they're humble. It's because somewhere deep in their unconscious, they've made the equation that ease equals unworthiness, that if things come easily, they must not be valuable. That suffering is the price of admission to a good life. I gave him an assignment that seemed absurd at the time. For 1 week, I said, I want you to act as if you already have the position, as if it's already decided. As if the universe has already said yes, and you're simply waiting for the paperwork to catch up. I want you to walk as that man would walk, speak as that man would speak, make decisions from that place. Not from the place of still needing to prove yourself, but from the place of already being exactly who you're meant to be. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Act as if? Doctor, I must prepare. I must ensure. I must control every variable. I must make certain that nothing goes wrong. If I relax, if I trust, if I stop pushing, everything could fall apart. No, I told him, that's the old story. That's the frightened child who believes that his vigilance is the only thing keeping disaster at bay. I want you to try something different. Just for 1 week, pretend that everything is already working out, not because you forced it to, not because you controlled every outcome, but because life is on your side. He resisted. Of course he did. The ego always resists what would liberate it, because liberation feels like death to the ego. But he was desperate enough to try, and something extraordinary happened. The panic attacks stopped, not gradually, not after weeks of practice, but almost immediately. Not because the external situation changed. The committee hadn't made their decision yet. His circumstances were exactly the same. But he stopped fighting against his own becoming. He stopped treating his life like a problem to be solved and started treating it like a story that was already unfolding perfectly. He told me later that it felt like he'd been holding his breath for 30 years and finally exhaled. That there was a tightness in his chest he'd carried for so long he thought it was just part of who he was, and suddenly it released. He started sleeping. His energy returned. He found himself genuinely enjoying the process instead of just enduring it. And here's the interesting part. Other people noticed. His colleagues commented that he seemed different, more confident, more at ease, more present. 3 weeks later, he received the appointment. But here's what matters, and this is the part that most people miss when they hear this story. By then, he didn't need it to feel whole. The validation he'd been chasing for 30 years, the external confirmation that he was enough, that he mattered, that he deserved to take up space in the world, he'd found in choosing to trust before he had proof. He'd found it in the decision to act as if, even when everything in him wanted to grip and control and force. When he came to tell me the news, I expected elation, but what I saw was something quieter, something deeper. He looked at me and said, "Dr. Freud, I realize now that I already had what I was seeking. The position is wonderful, yes, but what changed my life was not getting the position. It was discovering that my worth was never conditional on getting it, that I could be at peace before I achieved the thing, that I could trust before I had proof. That realization is worth more than any title." Now, you might be thinking, That's a nice story, Sigmund, but what does it actually mean for my life? How do I act as if things are working out when everything around me suggests otherwise? How do I trust when I've been disappointed so many times before? How do I relax into life when I have real bills to pay, real responsibilities to handle, real problems that won't solve themselves? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will reorganize everything you think you know about how the human mind actually works. Your unconscious mind is not your enemy. This is the first thing you must understand, and it's the thing that most people get completely backwards. The part of you that creates anxiety, that generates resistance, that sabotages your best intentions, it's not trying to destroy you. It's trying to protect a wound that has never healed. Every symptom is a symbol. Every obstacle is an invitation. Your psyche is constantly trying to bring unconscious material into consciousness, because that is how healing happens. Not by achieving more, but by integrating what has been split off. Let me explain this simply, because this is the foundation of everything. Imagine you're a child and you reach for your mother's hand, but she pulls away. Maybe she's busy, maybe she's stressed, maybe she's dealing with her own unhealed wounds. But in that moment, your young mind, which is designed to make meaning out of experience, makes an interpretation. Love is not safe. Reaching out leads to rejection. Better to not need anyone. Better to be self-sufficient. Better to never show vulnerability. This interpretation gets buried in your unconscious. You don't remember it consciously. You don't think about it. But it's there, operating like code in the background of your psyche. And 20 years later, you find yourself pushing away everyone who tries to get close. You call it independence. You call it self-protection. You call it being realistic or not wanting to be hurt. But it's actually a wound that never healed, creating the very abandonment it fears. You push people away before they can reject you, confirming the unconscious belief that connection isn't safe. And here's the fascinating part. Your unconscious doesn't want to keep this wound hidden. It wants to heal it. So it will keep creating situations that trigger it, that bring it to the surface, that force you to finally look at it and integrate it. This is why you keep attracting the same type of relationship. This is why you keep ending up in the same type of conflict. Not because you're cursed, not because you're broken, but because your psyche is trying to heal something, and it will keep presenting you with opportunities to do so until you finally address it. When you act as if everything is working out, you're not lying to yourself. You're signaling to your unconscious that it's safe to stop defending, safe to stop hiding, safe to let life through. You're telling that wounded part of you, the danger has passed. The threat was never real. You can rest now. You can open now. You can receive now. You can trust now. And when that part of you feels safe enough to release its grip, everything changes. Here is what changed my understanding of human suffering forever, and this might be the most important thing I share with you today. External reality is not happening to you. It is happening through you. Your unconscious beliefs create a perceptual filter that determines what you notice, what you interpret, and what you expect. If you believe life is a struggle, you will find evidence everywhere. Not because you're cursed, but because the mind seeks confirmation of its existing patterns. This is not mysticism. This is neurology. This is observable, measurable, scientifically verifiable. Your brain has something called the reticular activating system. It's a network of neurons at the base of your brainstem that acts as a filter between your unconscious mind and your conscious awareness. Right now, this very second, there are millions of pieces of sensory information available to you. The feeling of your clothes on your skin, the temperature of the air against your face, the pressure of your feet on the ground, the sounds in the distance, the hum of electricity, the rhythm of your own breath, the subtle sensations in your body, thousands of them, the play of light and shadow in your peripheral vision. But you weren't aware of them until I mentioned them, because your reticular activating system deemed them unimportant and filtered them out. Now, here's the profound part. This same filter is operating on your entire life experience. It's deciding what information gets through to your conscious awareness based on what your unconscious mind believes is important. And what your unconscious mind believes is important is determined by your core beliefs about reality, most of which were formed before you were 7 years old, before you had the capacity for critical thinking, before you could question whether they were true. If your unconscious belief is that things don't work out for you, your reticular activating system will highlight every piece of evidence that confirms this. The rejection, the setback, the disappointment, the failure. It will literally filter out or minimize the evidence to the contrary. The opportunity that did come through, the relationship that did work, the problem that did resolve itself, the lucky break, the perfect timing, the synchronicity. Not because these things didn't happen, but because they didn't fit the pattern your unconscious was looking for, and this creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe things don't work out, so you notice all the times they don't, which reinforces the belief, which causes you to notice it even more. You're trapped in a loop, but here's the beautiful part. When you shift the foundational assumption to things are working out for me, you don't change reality. You change which version of reality you're tuned into. And slowly, unmistakably, circumstances begin to reorganize around this new frequency. Not because you manifested them out of thin air, not because you used the law of attraction to bend the universe to your will, but because you stopped filtering out the opportunities, synchronicities, and support that were always there. You started noticing the doors that were opening, instead of only seeing the ones that were closed. You started interpreting setbacks as redirections instead of rejections. You started recognizing that what looked like failure was often protection or preparation for something better. Let me give you an example from my own work. I had a patient who believed she was cursed in love. Every relationship ended badly. Every man disappointed her. And she had a mountain of evidence to support this belief. But as we explored her history, I noticed a pattern. Every time a healthy man showed interest, she found reasons to reject him. Too boring, too nice, too available. But the unavailable men, the ones who were clearly wrong for her, she pursued relentlessly. Why? Because her unconscious belief was that love means suffering. So she filtered out the healthy options and fixated on the toxic ones, confirming her belief that relationships don't work out. When we addressed this unconscious pattern, when she started acting as if love was safe and available, her entire dating life transformed. Not because better men suddenly appeared, they'd been there all along, but because she finally allowed herself to see them and receive them. The filter changed. And therefore, her reality changed. Why is it so hard to believe that things could work out? Because your ego has built an entire identity around being the person for whom things don't work out. The struggler, the overlooked one, the martyr, the person who has to do everything the hard way, the underdog, the one who never catches a break. This identity feels safe because it's known, and the ego prefers a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven. Think about this carefully. If you've spent your whole life as the underdog, as the one who must fight for scraps, what happens to your sense of self when things start coming easily? Who are you without the struggle? What do you talk about without the drama? How do you connect with others without the shared wound? What do you post on social media if you're not overcoming obstacles? How do you earn sympathy and support if you're actually doing well? These might sound like trivial concerns, but to the ego, they're existential. Your identity is built from the stories you tell about yourself, and those stories are reinforced by the way others see you. If everyone knows you as the one who struggles, who has bad luck, who can't catch a break, then doing well threatens that entire construction. And the ego will sabotage your success to maintain the consistency of the identity, even if that identity is painful. Acting as if everything works out requires a small death. The death of the story you've been telling about yourself. The death of the identity that's been keeping you safe through its very limitations. This is why people resist their own breakthrough. Not because they don't want to feel better, but because feeling better would mean becoming someone they don't recognize. And the unknown, even when it's positive, is terrifying to the ego. I've watched this happen countless times. Someone is on the verge of a breakthrough. The healing is right there. The transformation is happening, and then they sabotage it. They pick a fight with their partner right when things are going well. They quit the job right before the promotion. They relapse right after a period of sobriety. Not because they're weak or broken, but because growth requires leaving behind who you were, and that feels like death to the part of you that's attached to the familiar. I have observed this in every patient I've ever treated, and it's one of the most profound patterns in human psychology. The psyche will not let you stagnate. If you refuse to grow voluntarily, it will create a crisis that forces your hand, the job loss that pushes you into your true calling, the breakup that reveals your pattern of choosing unavailable partners, the illness that makes you finally prioritize your well-being, the financial collapse that forces you to question your values around money, the betrayal that shows you where you weren't honoring yourself. These are not punishments, they are initiations. Your unconscious is far more intelligent than your conscious mind. It knows what you need before you know you need it. It will remove what no longer serves you, even if your ego is clinging desperately to it. It will close doors that lead to dead ends, even if you're banging on them begging to be let in. It will create uncomfortable situations that force you to finally set that boundary, speak that truth, or make that change you've been avoiding for years. I think about this in my own life. There was a time when I was pursuing a particular direction in my work that seemed promising. I was getting some recognition, some validation, but something felt off. I ignored it. I pushed forward. And then circumstances conspired to make that path impossible. Funding dried up, colleagues moved away, opportunities evaporated. At the time, I was devastated. I felt like life was against me. But looking back, I can see that my unconscious knew that path would have led me away from my true work. It orchestrated the collapse to redirect me. What felt like failure was actually course correction. When you act as if everything is working out, you're not denying the crisis, you're reading it correctly. You're asking, what is trying to emerge through this? What part of me is ready to be born? What is this situation asking me to release, to learn, to become? This shift in perspective changes everything. Suddenly you're not a victim of circumstances. You're a participant in your own evolution. You're not being punished. You're being initiated. You're not falling apart. You're falling together in a new configuration. Here's a secret that will change how you relate to your own nervous system, and I wish someone had told me this when I was younger, because it would have saved me years of unnecessary suffering. Anxiety and excitement are physiologically identical. Rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, butterflies in the stomach, heightened alertness, increased energy, tingling in the extremities. The only difference, and this is crucial, is the story your mind tells about these sensations. Anxiety says something bad is about to happen. Excitement says something is about to happen. Same body, different interpretation. Same neurochemistry, different narrative. Same sensations, completely different experience. When you practice acting as if things work out, you're not eliminating the energy. You're not trying to become calm and still and unaffected. You're reframing it. You're changing the story you tell about what you're feeling. That flutter in your stomach before taking a risk, it's not a warning. It's readiness. Your body is preparing you for expansion, not danger. It's mobilizing resources. It's getting you ready to step into something new. That restlessness you feel? It's not anxiety about the future, it's energy available for creation. It's life force wanting to move through you. That discomfort and uncertainty, it's not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's a sign you're growing beyond your comfort zone. It's a sign that you're becoming larger than the container you've been living in. I had a patient once who came to me with what she called crippling anxiety. She couldn't attend social gatherings, couldn't speak up in meetings, couldn't take any risk without days of agonizing deliberation. Her life had become so small, so controlled, so limited. But as we explored her history, we discovered that what she called anxiety was actually unexpressed life force, energy that wanted to move through her, to be expressed, to create, to connect. But she had learned to interpret it as danger. Her mother had been anxious, constantly worried, always catastrophizing. And as a child, my patient learned that feeling energy in the body meant something was wrong. So every time she felt that aliveness, that surge of possibility, that readiness to engage with life, her mind immediately labeled it as anxiety and shut it down. She'd been doing this for so long that she didn't even realize it. She thought the problem was the feeling, but the problem was the interpretation of the feeling. I taught her to pause when she felt that sensation and ask, what if this is excitement? What if this is my body saying yes? What if this energy is here to serve me, not warn me? What if I'm not in danger? I'm just alive. Within months, she was doing things that previously paralyzed her, speaking at conferences, going to parties, taking creative risks, starting a business. Not because the sensations stopped, but because she stopped making them mean what they never meant. She befriended her own life force instead of treating it as an enemy. People often say, God is testing me, or the universe is testing me. I hear this all the time, and I understand why people think this way. When life is difficult, when circumstances are challenging, it feels personal. It feels like someone or something is deliberately making things hard for you. But this is a misunderstanding of cosmic proportions. You are not being tested. You are being revealed to yourself. Every challenge exposes a belief you didn't know you had. Every trigger points to an unhealed wound. Every disappointment shows you where you were still making your happiness conditional. Every obstacle reveals where you're still holding on to control. Every rejection exposes where you're still seeking external validation. Every failure uncovers where you're still defining yourself by outcomes rather than essence. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. Life is not a teacher who withholds the lesson until you pass the test. Life is not sitting up there with a clipboard evaluating your performance. Life is a mirror that reflects back to you exactly what needs to be seen, healed, and integrated. And when you act as if everything is working out, you move through these revelations with grace instead of resistance. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this showing me about who I'm ready to become? I remember a woman who came to me absolutely convinced that the universe was punishing her. She'd lost her job, then her apartment, then her relationship, all in the span of 6 months. And she kept asking, what did I do wrong? What am I being punished for? How do I make this stop? But as we explored each of these losses, something interesting emerged. The job had been making her miserable for years, but she was too afraid to leave. The apartment was in a neighborhood that drained her, but she stayed because it was familiar. The relationship had been over for a year, but she clung to it out of fear of being alone. What looked like punishment was actually liberation. Her psyche was removing everything that was keeping her small, stuck, and suffering. But because it was scary and unfamiliar, she interpreted it as evidence that life was against her. Once she shifted to acting as if these changes were working in her favor, everything transformed. She found a job she loved. She moved to a part of the city that energized her. She spent time alone and discovered parts of herself she'd never known. A year later, she told me that losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to her. Let me distinguish between two types of surrender, because this is where people get confused and think that acting as if means being passive. False surrender says, I give up. Nothing I do matters. I'll just wait for fate to save me. I'll sit on my couch and hope the universe delivers what I need. This is resignation dressed as spirituality. It's passive. It's disempowered. It's the ego pretending to trust while actually giving up. It's a form of helplessness masquerading as faith. True surrender says, I will take inspired action without attachment to a specific outcome. I will do my part and trust the universe to do its part. I will show up fully, give my best, plant seeds, and then release the need to control exactly how and when they bloom. This is active. This is empowered. This is collaboration with life rather than either trying to control it or giving up on it entirely. Acting as if everything works out means you still show up, you still work, you still make choices, you still take responsibility for your life, but you do so from a place of collaboration with life rather than combat with it. You plant seeds knowing some will bloom and some won't, and trusting that even the ones that don't are teaching you about soil, seasons, and timing. You have the conversation knowing you can't control how it's received, but trusting that it needed to be spoken. You take the risk knowing you can't guarantee the outcome, but trusting that you'll learn either way. I've watched people exhaust themselves trying to force outcomes, trying to make someone love them through sheer persistence, trying to make a job work that's clearly not aligned through more hours and more sacrifice. Trying to control variables that are fundamentally uncontrollable, like other people's feelings, the economy, the weather, timing, and all of that force creates resistance, not just in the external world, but in the psyche itself. The more you force, the more your unconscious creates obstacles, because it knows that what you're forcing isn't what you actually need. Think about trying to force someone to love you. You can manipulate, convince, seduce, perform, but true love can't be forced. It either flows naturally or it doesn't. And when you're forcing it, you're actually preventing the real thing from showing up. The same is true for all of life. When you're gripping so tight, trying to make something happen in a specific way on a specific timeline, you're closing yourself off to the version that might actually serve you better. But when you take action from a place of trust, when you act as if things are working out, there's a flow to it. Effort without strain, discipline without rigidity, commitment without desperation. You can feel the difference in your body. Forcing feels tight, constricted, exhausting. Trusting feels open, spacious, energizing. Forcing comes from a place of lack, of not enough, of fear that if you don't control it, it won't happen. Trusting comes from a place of abundance, of knowing that what's yours will find you, and what's not yours is freeing you for something better. The final, most liberating truth is this: you are not trying to become whole. You are already whole, and your entire journey is about removing the layers of conditioning that made you forget this. Every wound you've experienced, every rejection, every failure, they didn't break you. They broke the false self you were building to survive in a world that demanded you be smaller than you are. You came into this world whole. As an infant, you didn't doubt your worth. You didn't question whether you deserved love, nourishment, attention. You didn't worry about whether you were good enough or smart enough or attractive enough. You simply received. You simply were. You existed without apology. You took up space without guilt. You expressed your needs without shame. You were connected to your own aliveness without all the stories and interpretations that would later cover it up. And then the world began its conditioning. Don't be too much. Don't be too loud. Don't take up space. Earn your place. Prove your value. Be good. Be quiet. Be convenient. Fit in. Don't rock the boat. Don't make waves. Your needs are too much. Your feelings are too big. Your desires are selfish. Shrink yourself. Dim your light. Make yourself small and acceptable and easy to manage. And layer by layer, you forgot the truth of what you are. You forgot that your existence itself is valuable. You forgot that you don't have to earn your worth. You forgot that you're not here to be convenient for others. You forgot that life is on your side. And you built this construct, this false self, made of all the things you thought you had to be in order to be loved, to be safe, to belong. Acting as if everything works out is not creating a new you. It's removing the false you, the you that learned to doubt, the you that internalized unworthiness, the you that made survival strategies into identity. Underneath all of that is the original you, the one who knows, without needing proof, that you belong here, that life is for you, that your existence itself is the worthiness, that you don't have to earn your place in the world, that you were born deserving of love, joy, peace, abundance, and fulfillment. And every time life doesn't work out the way you planned, it's actually working out by removing another layer of that false self. The job that rejects you is saying this isn't aligned with who you're becoming. The relationship that ends is saying this dynamic doesn't honor your worth. The plan that falls apart is saying there's a better way that you couldn't see from where you were. The disappointment is clearing space. The failure is course correction. The loss is liberation from something that was keeping you small. Now I know what you're thinking. This all sounds beautiful, Sigmund, but how do I actually do this? How do I reprogram decades of conditioning? How do I act as if things are working out when my bank account, my relationship, and my self-esteem are all screaming otherwise? How do I trust when I have so much evidence that life is hard and uncertain and often disappointing? Let me give you specific, practical tools you can implement immediately, because theory without practice is just philosophy, and you deserve transformation. You deserve practical steps that actually create change. Every morning, before you check your phone, before your mind starts listing problems, before you open your eyes to the world and all its demands, ask yourself this one question. What would I do today if I knew everything was already working out? Not what do I need to do? Not what am I afraid will happen if I don't? Not what should I do to prevent disaster? But what would you do from a place of trust? What would you do if you knew, with absolute certainty, that life is on your side? Maybe you'd send that email without obsessively revising it 17 times. Maybe you'd have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe you'd rest without guilt. Maybe you'd say no to something that drains you. Maybe you'd say yes to something that excites you. Maybe you'd take that small step toward the dream that feels too big. Maybe you'd stop waiting for permission and just begin. This question bypasses the anxious mind and accesses your deeper wisdom. Your anxious mind will give you a list of all the things you must do to prevent catastrophe, but your deeper wisdom knows what actually wants to move through you. Write down the first answer that comes. Don't overthink it. Don't analyze it. Don't judge whether it's practical or realistic. Just write it. Then do that thing, no matter how small. Even if it's just 5 minutes. Even if it feels insignificant. Do it as an act of trust. Your mind is a confirmation machine. Right now, it's scanning for evidence that things don't work out. It's collecting data points that confirm your existing beliefs. We are going to retrain it. Every evening, write down 3 pieces of evidence that things worked out today. Not big things, not life-changing miracles, small things, mundane things, ordinary evidence of life conspiring in your favor. I needed parking and a spot opened up right in front. I didn't know how to solve that problem, And then I had a sudden insight. Someone said exactly what I needed to hear at exactly the right moment. The bus came right when I got to the stop. I found money in my pocket I'd forgotten about. That bill I was worried about turned out to be less than I thought. My body healed that cut without me doing anything. I woke up rested even though I didn't sleep much. Someone smiled at me and it brightened my day. Do this for 30 days. 30 days of collecting evidence. Your unconscious will begin to notice what has been filtering out. The constant small miracles, the synchronicities. The way things do, in fact, work out more often than they don't. You'll start to see the pattern of grace that's been operating all along, but you couldn't see it because you weren't looking for it. What you pay attention to grows. What you appreciate multiplies. When something goes wrong, immediately ask, if this is actually working out perfectly, what could this be making space for? Not as a way to deny the difficulty or pain, but as a genuine inquiry into the deeper intelligence at play. The job rejection, maybe it's protecting you from a toxic environment or redirecting you towards something better that you couldn't see yet. The cancelled plans, maybe it's giving you time you desperately needed but wouldn't have given yourself permission to take. The argument, maybe it's revealing a dynamic that's been toxic for months and forcing a necessary conversation that would have stayed buried otherwise. The unexpected expense, maybe it's teaching you something about your relationship with money that needed to shift. The delay, maybe it's synchronizing you with timing you can't yet understand. The obstacle, maybe it's strengthening a capacity you're going to need later. This isn't about making excuses or avoiding responsibility. It's about looking at the same event from the perspective of a psyche that's trying to heal you, not harm you. From the perspective of a universe that's working for you, not against you. 3 times a day, for just 60 seconds, physically embody the person for whom everything works out. Not the person you're trying to become, the person you already are underneath all the conditioning. How do they stand? Shoulders back, chest open, breath deep and slow? How do they walk? With ease? With presence? With a sense of groundedness and confidence? What expression do they wear? Soft eyes? Slight smile? Relaxed jaw? Your body and mind are in constant communication. Your thoughts affect your physiology, yes, but your physiology also affects your thoughts. When you change your body, you change your neurochemistry. When you stand like someone who trusts life, your brain starts producing the chemicals associated with trust. When you breathe like someone who's at peace, your nervous system begins to regulate. This isn't fake. This isn't pretending. This is using your body to access a state that's already available within you. Do this when you wake up. Do it at lunch. Do it before bed. 60 seconds. Embody the version of you that knows everything is working out. And notice what happens. Notice how differently you move through the world. Notice how people respond to you differently. Notice how opportunities seem to appear, not because you created them with your posture, but because you stopped blocking them with your contracted, defended, fearful state. Anxiety is often rooted in an arbitrary timeline you've imposed on yourself. I should be married by 30. I should have succeeded by now. I'm running out of time. I'm behind. Everyone else is ahead of me. If I don't make it happen soon, I never will. These deadlines are usually not based on any real external requirement. They're based on fear, comparison, or internalized pressure from family, society, or your own ego's need for control. Practice this phrase. It's happening in the timing that serves my highest good. Not as a platitude that you repeat without feeling, but as a genuine inquiry. What if you're not behind? What if there's a reason things haven't happened yet? What if the delays are ripening you for something you're not yet ready to hold? What if arriving too early would have meant you weren't prepared? What if the timing is actually perfect and you just can't see it yet from where you're standing? I think about seeds. You plant a seed and nothing happens for days, weeks, sometimes months. If you dug it up to check on it, you'd kill it. But underground, invisible to you, roots are growing, structure is forming, the foundation is being built. And then one day the sprout breaks through the soil and it looks like a sudden miracle. But it wasn't sudden. It was happening all along beneath the surface where you couldn't see it. Your life is like that. Just because you can't see the progress doesn't mean nothing is happening. Just because the results aren't visible yet doesn't mean you're not on track. Trust the invisible work. Trust the underground growth. Trust that when the time is right, when the roots are strong enough, the breakthrough will come. Your unconscious is most receptive in the moments before sleep. This is a threshold state, a liminal space between waking and dreaming where the conscious mind's defenses are relaxed and the unconscious is more accessible. Use this threshold state deliberately. As you lie in bed, as you feel yourself beginning to drift, say silently or aloud, "I am safe. Life is on my side. Everything is working out for me, even when I can't see how. Show me the evidence. Guide me. Support me. Help me see." Then release it. Don't force it. Don't grip it. Don't lie there trying to make something happen. Just plant the seed and let your unconscious work while you sleep. You'd be astonished how often you'll wake with insights, solutions, or a sense of peace you didn't have before. How often the problem that seemed insurmountable the night before has a clear solution in the morning. How often you'll have a dream that gives you exactly the guidance you needed. The unconscious works when the conscious mind rests, so give it something to work with. Give it a directive. Give it permission to show you that life is working for you, and then trust it to do its work while you sleep. Some of my greatest insights came to me in dreams or in that half-awake state in the morning, not because I forced them, but because I asked and then got out of the way. Stop scheduling every minute of your day. Leave gaps where unplanned things can happen. Leave space for spontaneity, for synchronicity, for the unexpected conversation or opportunity, or insight that can only show up when you're not rigidly controlling every moment. Take a different route to work. Say yes to an unexpected invitation. Strike up a conversation with a stranger. Go somewhere you've never been. Break your routine. Synchronicity happens, but only when there's space for it. When every moment is controlled and planned and scheduled, you miss the whispers from the universe trying to guide you. You miss the chance encounter that would have changed everything. You miss the opportunity that was just slightly outside your predetermined path. Some of the most important things in my life happened because I left space for them, because I was open to what I hadn't planned for. Every Sunday, look back at your week and list everything, big or small, that worked out without you forcing it. The conversation that went better than expected. The solution that appeared from nowhere. The friend who called right when you needed them. The way your body healed that injury without you micromanaging it. The opportunity that found you instead of you having to chase it. The money that showed up unexpectedly. The kindness of a stranger. The perfect timing of something. Celebrate these. Don't just note them and move on. Actually celebrate them. Acknowledge them. Feel gratitude for them. Thank them. You're training your mind to see the pattern of grace that's been operating all along. You're rewiring your reticular activating system to highlight evidence of support instead of evidence of struggle. You're teaching your unconscious that it's safe to trust life. And here's what will happen. Slowly at first, then more and more, you'll notice that life is actually supporting you far more than you realized. You'll see that most of what you've been anxious about never happens. You'll recognize that the things that did happen, even the difficult things, ultimately served your growth. You'll start to feel held by life instead of threatened by it. And that feeling, that shift from bracing against life to leaning into it changes everything. Let me leave you with this, and I want you to really hear what I'm saying. Acting as if everything works out is not about denying reality. It's about recognizing a deeper reality, that your psyche is not random, that chaos is not meaningless, that you are not a victim of circumstances beyond your control, that there is an intelligence operating in your life and it's working for your wholeness, even when it doesn't feel that way. Every moment of your life has been preparing you for this moment. Every wound has carried a gift, even if you haven't unwrapped it yet. Every ending has cleared space for a beginning. Every failure has taught you something essential. Every rejection has redirected you. Every loss has liberated you from something that wasn't meant for you. And the part of you that doubts this, it's just the last defense of an ego that's terrified of how powerful you'd be if you truly believed it. You are not here to suffer your way to worthiness. You were born worthy, and nothing you've done or failed to do has changed that. You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to express yourself. You are not here to earn love. You are here to remember that you are love. You are not here to become enough. You are here to recognize that you already are. Life is not testing you. Life is for you. It's always been for you. Even in the moments when it felt like it was against you, it was actually clearing the path, removing obstacles, preparing you for what you're becoming. Every challenge is an invitation to grow. Every obstacle is an initiation into a larger version of yourself. Every moment of uncertainty is asking you to trust what you cannot yet see. And when you do, when you finally exhale and stop fighting against the current of your own becoming, you will look back and see that it was all, always, working out. Not in the way you planned, not on your timeline, not according to your specifications, but in a way that was ultimately more aligned, more right, more perfect than anything you could have orchestrated with your limited conscious mind. The universe has a plan for you that's bigger than any plan you have for yourself. Your unconscious has a wisdom that far exceeds your conscious understanding. Life is unfolding with a precision and intelligence that you can't see from where you're standing, and your job is not to control it. Your job is to trust it, to collaborate with it, to stop resisting it and start dancing with it. Here is your daily mantra, and I want you to say this not just with your mind, but with your whole being. Feel it in your body. Let it resonate in your heart. Allow it to sink into the deepest parts of your unconscious. Say it when you wake. Say it when doubt creeps in. Say it when you're afraid. Say it when you're uncertain. Say it until it becomes the background music of your life, until it becomes more true than any fear or worry or doubt. I trust the timing of my life. I trust the unfolding of my path. What is mine will find me. What is not mine will free me. Everything is working out. Even when I can't see it. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Even when my circumstances suggest otherwise. Everything is working out. I am exactly where I need to be. I am learning exactly what I need to learn. I am becoming exactly who I'm meant to become. And life is on my side. If this resonated with you, if something in your chest relaxed just a little, if you felt even a small shift in how you're holding your life, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button to help this reach others who need to hear it. Because I truly believe there are people out there right now, in this very moment, who are struggling with the same doubts and fears you've been carrying. And this message might be exactly what they need to hear. And please, drop a comment sharing your own experience with trust, with surrender, with that moment when you realized life was working for you all along. Tell me about a time when something that seemed like the worst thing turned out to be the best thing. Share the moment when you stopped fighting and started flowing. I genuinely want to hear from you. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember who you are. Remember that you're not broken. Remember that you're not behind. Remember that life is not against you. And most importantly, remember to trust your becoming. Everything is working out. It always has been, and it always will be.